Hey there, y'all. Disney D Prince here today with another Make It Over Monday. For Mondays in March, we are going to be covering some jewelry that you can make for pretty cheap for your dolls. Now, as you can see back here, I have a bunch of different necklaces that I've already made because I went on a bit of a crazy person mode and started just beading. But, you know, these are really fun to make, really easy. And I figure, if Barbie's just going to keep giving us plastic necklaces that are just kind of boring and flat, and most of the time in really, disappointing colors and things, here, let's take an example. So we've got this beaded necklace from Barbie, which is fine, but we could do this in actual beads, minus the bow, and it would be really cute. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of the basics. We are going to look over everything, all of our options. So thankfully, I found some helpful tutorials online when I first started doing this, and I've kind of just cobbled together my own method from there. But your basics are you're going to either have a choker length, a princess length, a matinee length, or an opera length necklace, as we can see here on my very helpful blue dress form, because I had it on a white mannequin and it did not show up well on film, so I had to change it around. But as you can see from my little IKEA display, you can make a lot of different combinations. If you use different sized beads, if you use a little bit of twisting, if you use a little bit of layering, you can make these necklaces look really interesting. You can also kind of screw them up, like this one is not my favorite. I was trying to go for something different and it did not work. It came off more like Surfer Bro from the early 2000s than what I was hoping for. But then you can also kind of do something like this, which gives a little bit of like Princess Diana vibes. So today I'm going to show you guys exactly how I go about actually making one of these necklaces. And I'll show you guys everything that I use and basically how it works. So we are going to start off with probably one of the easier ones to do, and that is going to be just a triple strand choker. So we can get kind of the same look that we had on our vintage Barbies, like this, except these are all one strand and it's twisted over itself. So it's not really removable. So what we're gonna do is make our own version of that, where you can kind of take the clasp off as needed. It's not easy to do the way I do it, but it is a little bit more accessible. So I'm going to show you guys everything that I use. We're going to tilt down like we normally do for Make It Over Mondays. Okay, so you'll see down here I have a marker. This is generally what I use to make sure my links are right. These are the flat links before you link them together. And it's going to be about 2.5 inch for choker. You can make it a little shorter if you want to get it a little bit tighter. 3.25 for the princess length, 4.25 for matinee, and 6 inches for the opera length. So we are going to be doing choker So we are going to be doing 3 separate strands of that, and then we are going to make it nice. So the way I start off any of these necklaces is I secure my thread into the link of this cheap chain. Like, this is just curb chain, 2.4 millimeters, so it's nice and small. Here is the UPC in case you're trying to find it. I got this. I don't even remember where I got it. It says Joann's on there, but I don't think I've ever actually been in a Joann's, but I might have been. And then for beads, most of the time I use 11/0 beads. These are going to be your small Barbie pearls, and these are very cute. I picked these up. These are John Bead white pearl. And there's the UPC for those. And I basically just use these when I want Barbie size pearls. Not giant pearls, just regular pearls. If you want something a little bit bigger, you can go with the 8/0 beads, because they are slightly larger. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put one of these in the center to make it slightly larger, like I did on this one back here. Show you guys what I mean. Like that. You can do like 3 in the center to where it looks more like gradiated pearls. But with what we're going for today is we are going to be recreating some vintage styles. So I have some thread that's still in my needles from the last project that I did, so I got to take this out because this isn't going to be long enough. So these are actually big eye needles is what they call them. You guys can kind of see what I mean. As you can see, that whole needle pretty much is an eye, which is great because it means that when we get into these tighter lengths, that we can slide the entire needle along the along the entirety of the thing. Now, because I'm going to do 3 of these, I'm probably going to want to do 4 or 5 of my opera lengths, just because it's going to make it just a little bit easier to not have to go back and rethread your needle. But it is a surprisingly complicated process to get these to be the right length and not get tangled. So it is my standard practice to thread, okay, and thread through the middle of the needle until we get to our midpoint on our thread, or at least as close as we can get. Okay, and then you're going to want to put a couple of knots here at the very end of your string, and this is just regular thread. I don't use elastic string, so you could actually use elastic string if you want to make it a little bit more durable, but I use thread because it's what I had on hand in typical Make It Over Monday style. Okay. I try to knot it right over on top of each other, and when I miss, I just try again. That's fine, close enough. So what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to take our needle and go through the end of the chain, just like this. And we're going to want to go through the center of our chain, just like that. So we can secure that. And then for the second pass through, what we want to do is just do a regular knot, just to really secure them on there. Okay, and then we'll do another pass through just to really make sure that it's actually secure on there. I like to really make sure that my ends are secured to the chain, so that way when I am beading, I don't have to worry about it. Now you can trim this extra thread off at this point. You could do it later. I'm going to do it right now just because that looked really messy, and I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. And again, I just use my handy dandy nippers, or flush cutters as they're called. And now we are secure to start beading. So what we'll do is I take my 11/0 beads and I just pour a couple of them, just probably about that much, into the crease of my palm. And then from there, we just kind of start picking them up. It can be a little tedious if you're not used to it, but I prefer this method to using a bead spinner, just because my hand is free and a bead spinner is not. And the fact that I have pretty oily hands just in general means that I don't have to worry about it going all haywire as often as I thought it would. And we're about halfway there already with just that first go around. Now you can go through and count out beads and do the millimeter, because these are 2.5 millimeter beads, but I just generally prefer to kind of eyeball it. So we'll probably do about 6 or 7 more from where we were at. Okay, and then we'll go like this. And then we've got to our marker line. And now what I'll do in the meanwhile is I'll take those and scoop them back into the jar. And then we will get our thread out. And now what I generally like to do is secure the other end not to the next chain or the next link, but actually I like to leave one in the middle. Then again, we weave through that the center of the thread so we can get it like that. And then what we'll do is we'll go through and knot it once. Just like that. And bada bing. Now we have a standard just pearl necklace. Now we're going to do that 2 more times until we have our triple strand. Each time we're going to secure it to the other end of the chain. Now in an actual pearl necklace, you would go through and knot each individual pearl. So this is not going to hold up to intense scrutiny. And an FYI, every time they do a scene in the movie where like the pearls get ripped off the neck and then the pearls go flying everywhere, that is just Hollywood. A truly properly strung strand of pearls is not going to lose every single pearl like that. It is going to be properly knotted. Okay. Just an FYI in case you're a little weird like I am, which if you're watching me bead doll necklaces, you are my people. So my Monday crowd are probably the closest to me in personality, just FYI. For my followers who are sticking around on Monday videos when I talk to myself and do crafts, this is our parallel play. Okay. Eh, 3 or 4 more, probably. Now, these beads are not super expensive. Like we're talking, there's, you know, one of those little tubes is probably about $3 and it'll make you a butt ton of necklaces. Just FYI, in case you're worried, these are expensive beads. And you're like, oh no, he's losing them. No, they're not. They are not expensive at all. Okay. So we got to our mark on that one. I'm going to take these and put them back in the, whatchamacallit, in the jar, tube, thingamabobber. And then we're going to go back onto this side. Again, threading through the center. I generally like to do that. Okay, and then we will go through and knot it again. Did I? Yes, okay, there we go. So again, now we've got a double strand of pearls that's secured to 3 links of chain, and we're going to go through and do our final 3 strand. Now you can do these a little bit more complicated if you want to weave through the first like 1 or 2 beads of your previous strand to where it looks like they're coming out of the same thing. But as we just kind of want to have that stacked look this time, I would leave it probably like that. But I'll show you guys an example here at the end of how I would have done that one. But for now, actually, let's see, so our needle is almost as long as our choker length. So I'm going to actually just do this to where pretty much just going to fill up the needle. Now, using the wrong needle will make your life a lot more stressful. I tried using regular sewing needles, like the smallest I could get, and it was still a pain in the butt. So do go for like the beading needles or the big eye needles like I have right now. The big eye needles are great because they are pretty flexible, which is great for when you're trying to jab these little suckers onto the needle. Okay. So we're about 3/4 of the way there. And again, this is why I put down a marker on my work surface, because it is a lot easier to compare that final length when you have your marker on the ground. But we got that, and now let's secure this last one. Okay. Okay. Bueno. Again, going through it first, so we can make sure that our stuff is tight. And then what we'll do is go through and tie it on there, is do the knot on there twice like we did at the beginning. After we did our pass through, just like that. Okay, and then we have our triple strand, which I will show you guys how we take this off our regular chain here in just a second. So what you want to do is you want to grab the link that is right before with either some beading pliers or some nippers, and you just want to take that chain off, you just want to break that first link after you have already made your chain. Just this link. Save these links because they help for putting charms on other necklaces. And then what we have is we have our triple strand, and we just take our last little bit off of the thread right there. And let me show you guys on a doll body how this kind of works. So what we want to do is try to get things in the right order. I'm sure if you count things, it's going to be a little bit better, but this is how you would do it. We can make that a little bit shorter, or we can just kind of let it hang down the back a little bit. But as you can see, this looks pretty realistic. That middle link that we leave winds up looking like a clasp, and I think it works better than just you know, leaving some of these lobster clasp on there. But like, that's a pretty good one, and it winds up being pretty easy to manipulate. And it didn't really take us that long. I can knock these out pretty quickly when I'm not filming, but because I want to make sure everything stays in frame, it does take me a little bit longer to do these like this. But again, it's very easy. And let me show you guys what I mean by weaving some of these together. So I have this necklace that I made for one of my wedding dresses back in February. And see, this is what I mean. I weaved it through these first 3 beads and then started my second strand. So it looks a little bit nicer here in the back. It's still tied to this first one, but I wove the needle through these beads and then tied it and then wove it back down through to start the new one. So that is kind of how you would do that if you wanted to do that for that kind of style, which you could do if you wanted it to lay flatter like this. Since we were going for the stacked look, I figured it was better to leave them as individual strands. It does look a little messier in the back, but that's okay. And we still have a lot of leftover thread for our next project, which is going to be next week. So if you guys had any questions on anything that I used here in the video today, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. If you enjoyed it, leave me a like, and as always, follow along for some more fun Make It Over Mondays. Be good, y'all. Bye.